Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine and your host of the RodCAST, brought to you by Lucas Oil. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Costa, editor of Engine Labs and the all-around tech guru. What's going on, Greg?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. So, if you clicked on this video, then you already know this is the fourth installment of the Mid-Engine Supercar Shootout. And this time we are building the new NSX S. So pretty exciting stuff. Literally just dropped the configurator and announced that they were coming out. So we were pretty excited because last week we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to do this. Lo and behold, the people at Acura, they knew we needed them. So they dropped the configurator.
Well, the weird thing is, I don't think I've ever seen that. I mean, not that I watch configurators super closely or anything, but I've never seen it where they will take it offline while they bring out a new model, like for that long. Because I mean, it was offline for a solid week and a half.
Well, yeah, they're probably tooling with some of the stuff. I didn't get to look at it before they took it down, so I don't know the differences. But I'm certainly glad that they put it back up, man. Because I feel like people would have criticized us quite a bit if we were to use like the Godzilla instead. It's like, oh, that's a totally different car. It's like not even the same, category.
It isn't. I mean, the NSX has and always will be, the pinnacle supercar. I mean,
no, that's
are we hypercar yet? Like, where's that line? I really don't know what that line is.
You could have made, I think if you were going to make that case, it would have been last episode with the McLaren.
I don't know where the line between supercar and hypercar is.
It probably has to do with the price tag. And
once you get into that seventh digit,
yeah, then it's maybe it's for hyper inflated, like the hyper. Now, anyways. We got the NSX build coming for you guys. Of course, Rob Finkelman, the Street Muscle Mag columnist, is back to offer his expertise and a little bit of history on the brand itself, everything leading up to the NSX that we know and love today. So without further ado, I guess we should just jump right into it. Don't want to be too long-winded. But first, let's have a word from one of our sponsors.
At Silver Sport Transmissions, we believe classic cars and trucks look their best on the open road, and four-wheel drives belong on the trail. We continue to innovate and develop the best overdrive transmission packages for muscle cars, street rods, classic trucks, and four-wheel drive vehicles. Our commitment to customer service and integrity is second to none. When the wrenches begin to turn, Silver Sport Transmissions is there. Hit the trail with Silver Sport Transmissions.
Welcome, gentlemen, to another episode.
My captain.
What's going on, Rob? Greg, what's going on?
Doing good, guys. Hanging in there.
Welcome back to another episode of the RodCAST and another episode of the Supercar Shootout.
Yep.
You guys at home have been following along, and if you haven't, well, shame on you. But we've built several cars now. This is number 3 or 4. This is the 4th.
Well, yes. I mean, are we counting the Corvette as one of the cars, or are we counting it as the baseline?
No, we're definitely counting it.
Then this is number 4.
We did Corvette. We did
R8.
We did
720S.
720S. So yeah, number 4. And after this, right. I think we might only have one left, unless we decide to.
If we're going to do the GT. We got to throw it in. I mean, if we do it, we got to do it before the Ferrari,
I think so too, because the Ferrari is kind of going to be your high-end baseline, whereas the Corvette's the low end, just in terms of price, if nothing else. But,
that remains to be seen. We'll decide that off camera, and maybe not. You guys will see. But today we're building the new Acura. The NSX was just released. Thank you. S was just released, and they have a configurator. Lucky for us and you guys.
Just in time too, because last week they didn't have a configurator, so we were actually behind the scenes worrying about it, because our fallback, ladies and gentlemen, was a Godzilla GTR, which we're great car, and we all respect him, but
Didn't
it's not
fit here.
mid-engine, so it wouldn't. What?
It
It's
didn't
not
fit
a great
here.
car.
No,
It
I said it
didn't
just
fit,
didn't
yeah.
fit here.
No,
Yeah, I mean, it
and
wasn't.
I call this the
wasn't mid-engine.
Supercar Shootout, but it's really the Mid-Engine Supercar Shootout.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So-
luckily, Acura stepped up. They probably knew we were waiting on them to do this podcast, and came in.
Their like IT department was scrambling. We got to get this up. Come on.
Street Muscle is doing their damn podcast. Let's get on this.
There's just like a bunch of Hugh Jackman hackers. Like, I'm almost in the mainframe.
That is a word that needs to come back, by the way. Mainframe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like every time I call a server a mainframe, I just get blank looks.
No one uses mainframe anymore. I lament that.
Well, okay, so just rabbit hole, Angelina Jolie, hackers, go watch it. Anyways,
Great movie. Seriously.
fantastic.
Oh boy, does she look good in that movie? She's like 20 years old or something in that film.
No kidding. What was her? I think what was her code name or her hacker name?
Can't even remember.
You're gonna ask that, aren't you? And just make me not remember.
Crash Override was the main character.
Yeah, her husband. She actually married that guy.
Is that right?
Yeah, they were married for like 5 years or something. I can't remember his name, but he's actually English.
Lucky dude, man.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you guys know, drop it in the comment section below. We appreciate it. What was the other guy's name? Something Little, Matthew Lillard.
Lillard, yeah, that
Lillard.
annoying
He had
guy.
a funny name too. If you guys know any of their code names, put them in the comment section below.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Do
back
you want to
the,
know it? I looked it up. Do you want to know? Well, the thing is, they are all these names are so 1990s.
I know,
Yeah.
I love it. It's so good.
Okay, so she was Acid Burn,
Acid
Yes.
Burn, that's right.
and then there was
Crash
Phantom
Override.
Freak with a PH,
Right.
Okay.
Lord Nikon,
And Serial Killer.
The Plague.
The Plague.
Matthew Lillard was Serial Killer.
Yeah, do you remember Crash Override's other name? He had two names in that.
Something Zero.
Yes, Zero Cool.
Zero
Zero
Awesome.
Cool. That's
Wow.
right. He started the movie as Zero Cool.
Yeah.
He was the infamous guy who hacked. What did he hack? I
He
can't
had something,
remember.
but he got caught.
Yeah, but it was like the Pentagon or something.
Yes, yeah. He was like on probation or something.
Yeah.
And he couldn't touch a computer.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Right.
the,
Kinda
the,
like-
the standard hacker
I
trope.
gotta watch it now. I hope it's on Amazon. That's what I'm gonna do tonight is watch Hackers, man.
It was kind of like Tokyo Drift, where they won't let him
Right,
near a car.
right.
Anyways, back to the NSX S. Okay, Rob, you were telling us about its launch. We were biting our fingernails, hoping that they were going to drop this configurator. They did. Now we're here to build it. But before we do, we always like to give a little bit of background and history on the respective brand.
And it's lucky I'm here because I am a veritable fountain of Honda history, just in human form. So,
No, it's
Honda.
true, man. You do a great job, so thank you.
Well, thank you. Honda is an incredible story in a lot of ways, most notably because of the fact that it was started by one person, Soichiro Honda. And he actually started in the parts, manufacturing parts pre-World War II. He was building things like piston rings and stuff like that were supplied to the existing Japanese auto and motorcycle manufacturers at the time. And it ended up being a failed business, but it gave him enough credibility so that banks would loan him money to start a new venture. And that venture he started was to make motorized bicycles. And that factory where he was building these little mopeds was actually destroyed during Allied bombing, which brought him back to literally zero during World War II. But post-war, the United States, in its infinite wisdom then, unlike what we're seeing today in Afghanistan, built up the Japanese economy because the powers that be in America and the rest of the Allies realized that you would run the risk of fascism again in Japan unless they built the country up economically. So billions and billions of 1940s dollars were spent by the United States, Australia, other countries to build Japan back. And it was very easy for people who had manufacturing experience pre-war to get loans and stuff to start post-war factories. And Soichiro Honda was one of those people. And he started, again, building mopeds under the name Honda for the first time, and graduated into building full-fledged motorcycles in the 50s.
And what are we talking at that time? That would have been like the Cub, like motorcycles.
Yeah, like, you know, low displacement, little, I don't think you would call them dirt bikes, but just like commuter bikes, because a lot of Japan was bombed to the point that the roads weren't really good. So cars weren't as important immediately post-war as bikes were for people to get to work and stuff like that.
Now, these are kind of bike that we don't see in the US these days very often, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, these were little putt-putt bikes, but they were effective in the ability for people to get to work from their homes and do so on roads that might have bomb holes in them and craters in them and so forth, whereas cars couldn't traverse those roads. And they were impressively economic in terms of fuel, and they were low priced to buy, and they were simple, so they didn't break down a lot. And if they did, the repairs were very simple things. There was no electronics or anything on these bikes. It was obviously purely mechanical, carbureted engines and so forth. And Soichiro Honda built that up to the point where by the late 1950s, Honda was actually the largest manufacturer of motorcycles in Japan. It had eclipsed brands like Suzuki and Yamaha, Kawasaki, and so forth, and was the #1 brand in Japan. And they began to export those motorcycles around the world, and they became popular in other places outside of Japan. By the early 1960s, Japan was an economic powerhouse. It was a miracle, rising, much like Germany, rising from literal ashes, nuclear ash, atomic ashes in some places of Japan, obviously. And their economy was expanding at a rate quicker than anywhere else in the world. Their infrastructure had been completely repaired by then, roads, highways, you name it. And so Soichiro Honda got the idea that he wanted to get into automobiles and started making small, again, simple economic cars used by commuters mostly to get to and from work or for local driving. And they became extremely popular in Japan. And by the 1970s, in this country, as we all know, our auto manufacturers had really dropped the ball in a lot of ways, lagging behind European and now Japanese competitors in terms of quality, fuel efficiency, interior appointments. American cars by the late 70s were really junk. And I'd be hard pressed to pick, a really great car from that era. Even our beloved Corvette was putting out like 175 horsepower and top trim in those days. It was pretty pathetic. And Honda came to the United States and started selling their small cars like hotcakes. Couldn't build them quick enough here because they were high quality, simple, easy to maintain, decent performance, if not, sporty performance. They certainly
kind of not to interrupt, Rob.
Sure.
But does it surprise either of you that that the American public was so quick to purchase Japanese automobiles, given that we were just, I mean,
They
World War
weren't.
II is.
I don't think they were.
No, I don't think it is a surprise, because what Honda and like Toyota and Datsun in those days, before it was called Nissan here, were offering were cars that were of much higher quality than anything you could buy American at a cheaper price.
No, I understand that, but just the fact that World War II was still in the rear view. I mean, by the 1970s, yeah, I suppose the focus was on Vietnam and all that, but
well, there was that, and also you have to remember that any lasting like anti-Japanese sentiment had already melted away by then, because Japan had become one of our closest allies at that point. One of the few countries, along with like Israel, that were able to purchase frontline military equipment, like the F4 Phantoms and stuff we supplied by the dozens to the Japanese Air Force, the Israeli Air Force. They were a tight ally. And we had spent all that time and money and had so many personnel over there post-war to build their country back up, that I think a lot of Americans came home from that theater in the 50s being so impressed by the Japanese people, their culture, their ingenuity, their technical prowess in things like electronics, cars, you name it. I really don't think that was a factor. And the fact that they were building better cars at a cheaper price point, that's always going to get people to buy, no matter where it comes from.
Well, yeah, no, I'm glad I asked, because that's an interesting perspective, and I think you're probably right. And it must have been the older generation, if there was any resistance at the time. It would have been, your grandpa wouldn't have wanted to buy a Honda.
Right, but your grandpa was still buying death trap Cadillacs that were 18 feet long and got 6 miles to the gallon. So they weren't the target market for Honda anyway. Honda was looking at upwardly mobile young people, in their 20s, who had their starter jobs, like real jobs, like professional, as opposed to, working at McDonald's as their first job as a teenager. They were aiming it at people who were starting to make a little money, but still weren't wealthy, and just needed and wanted a super reliable car that got great gas mileage. Because remember, in those days, people were losing their minds at a $1 gas, because just 8 years prior, a tank of gas was like, cost like nothing. And now suddenly it was $1.20, $1.40 or whatever for a gallon of gas. And on every count, Honda just hit it out of the park in terms of what Americans were looking for. And they grew and grew and grew. They were always a much smaller company than Toyota, which for a long time was the second and sometimes the largest car company in the world. Fiat held that title for a long time as largest, but Toyota was always neck and neck in terms of volume and manufacturing and stuff. And Honda was kind of its little brother, but it grew impressively in the 1980s. They invested heavily in Formula One racing, and that investment garnered them untold technological expertise and experience, especially with turbocharged engines, which is what Formula One was running for most of the 80s. And to bring us to what's important to this conversation, by the late 80s, they were prepared and wanted to take on the Italians and the Germans in the supercar business.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it really was their involvement in Formula One that put a fire under them, saying, you know what, we're going to build a world beater streetcar. And they started from a clean sheet of paper. They used a lot of Formula One technology, or trickle down technology, I could say, including, most importantly, variable valve timing. We always see memes and stuff that make fun of Hondas where it's like, yo, the VTEC just kicked in. Or, all jokes aside, variable valve timing was one of the most important innovations of the late 80s, and it really came directly from Honda's experience in Formula One. It improved gas mileage and performance of small capacity engines almost unmeasurably. I mean, it's incredible the performance yield that came out of it without sacrificing gas mileage, which in Formula One was a big deal because you had a set amount of fuel you could use in those days without refueling. And what they built and released in 1991 was the first supercar that Honda had ever been involved in. And as we all know, that car was the NSX. It was actually called the Honda NSX in most parts of the world, but in the United States was known as the Acura NSX because at that time Honda had launched Acura as a high-end brand.
What year exactly did they launch Acura?
I can't remember the exact year, but it was in the late 80s, and all the other manufacturers followed their game plan.
Was the NSX the immediate flagship for the Up brand?
Yes, it was. And Toyota followed suit with Lexus, and Infiniti followed with Nissan. They all realized that like a halo brand was a great idea because they could still sell economic small cars to people in that station in life, and then aim for people with lots of money and compete with the likes of Mercedes and BMW and cars like that. And the NSX was the cherry on their sundae. It was in many ways a groundbreaking car. It was the first car to have an all aluminum monocoque. Now, monocoque is a different method of underpinning the structure of a car than a chassis. It's actually something that surrounds the driver's compartment, which makes it extremely safe, reduces vibration, and also allowed for a mid-engine configuration, which we all know is super important for weight distribution and good handling. So when I say they took a clean sheet of paper, they really did. They took their lessons from Formula One, which used monocoques. In those days, Formula One was starting to use carbon fiber monocoques for even lighter weight than aluminum, but it was literally the first street car that ever had an all aluminum monocoque instead of a chassis, and incorporating a mid-engine V6 with variable valve timing, again, learned from Formula One. So in many ways, this was a groundbreaking car. What made it extra special was at the time, Honda in Formula One was supplying engines to the McLaren team, which were all conquering during that era with two drivers, Alain Prost, a French driver, and the legendary Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian genius. And they paid Ayrton Senna to be the lead test driver in developing the NSX. And he had a massive amount of input in dialing in the handling of the car in terms of engine mapping, getting the torque curve right. And he was just invaluable in the developing of the car. And he died just a few years later in a Formula One race. That might be his ultimate legacy, more even than Formula One. He was behind the tuning and perfecting of Japan's hypercar, the NSX.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And so the original generation of the NSX, Greg, you might have to look it up and help me. I think it ran till about 2000, early 2000s.
2001, I believe.
2001 with minor changes throughout. They increased the displacement at one point in the mid 90s. And they, instead of pop-up headlights, they went to covered for better aerodynamics, but largely the NSX's entire run, it was the same aluminum monocoque, same styling, you know.
Man, can you imagine owning one of those? It's like Ayrton Senna, had a huge role designing it. And I know most people who are not in the know, that's not going to mean very much to them. But for people who are, I mean, that's pretty weighty.
Absolutely. He, by most informed people, really informed on car racing, pretty much universally, whether you come from NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, rallying, most people, regardless of the discipline, agree that Senna was probably the most naturally talented driver who ever lived. And the most committed and dedicated. His whole life was racing. He didn't have a wife. He didn't have other interests, nothing. It was pure racing for the guy.
When you think about extremely dominant figures in all of sports, not just motorsports, but sports, his name is among the greatest. Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Ayrton Senna.
Absolutely. It's in the same league. And if you all are interested in out there, if you do a search on YouTube for Ayrton Senna Acura NSX, you'll find footage of him that was shot for a promotional video for Acura of him actually testing a prototype NSX on the Suzuka racetrack where they run the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix. And there's a camera in the foot box, a camera on the outside, and a camera in the interior. So you get to see him actually steering and shifting. You get to see the way the car is moving on track, and you get to see him clutching and panic braking. And it's a phenomenal video. I mean, the guy was a machine. It's incredible to watch his feet.
I believe someone just did a bronze statue of him at the McLaren.
There's that, and there's a statue of him at the racetrack that he died at in Italy, track called Imola in the town of near the town of San Marino in Italy.
There's a question that I've been dying to ask, Greg. So obviously Honda was the innovator when it came to VVT. And, all these years later, I mean, pretty much every automotive brand there is uses some form. Are they still at the pinnacle of that? Are they the best doing it?
The best? That's tough to say because there's so much competition now. And it depends on what box you want to put them in, but they are the originals. I mean, VTEC is the first. I mean, it literally for a long time was the only household name for variable time.
Sure, yeah. I think the only other place I saw it was in some like Toyota and Lexus, and they literally just called it VVT.
Well, exactly. I mean, think about it. When the Ford Z-Tech engine came out, it had nothing to do with variable timing. That was just the name that Ford chose, but everybody made fun of it because they thought they were copying VTEC. Not to mention everybody thought it had variable valve timing, and it didn't.
And VTEC was really in large part responsible for McLaren Honda's dominance in Formula One. They had the two best drivers in the world in Prost and Senna, but really their domination of the sport at that time was because the Honda engine was just untouchable by Ferrari, by anybody at that time. Renault, no one could touch it.
Yeah. And I mean, nowadays there's so many different ways to do it. There's the way that Honda did it. And I mean, even Honda has gotten away from it with iVTEC. It's got, a little more intelligence with it. But then, a while back, we saw the first variable duration camshaft where duration was, I mean, that
was BMW.
No, that was actually Hyundai. Yeah.
Because I know BMW has a version of their variable valve timing, which is very complex and typical German,
Yeah, and the reason why the Hyundai thing is so special is duration was variable independently of everything else.
Gotcha.
Like all these other ones, you can vary duration because duration is a function of lift.
Sorry, Greg, for our uninitiated audience, can you, in a nutshell, explain what variable valve timing is without, you know what I mean?
It basically lets you have multiple camshafts in like multiple cam grinds. That's a way to put it. So you can have an economy grind, and then when you want to, step on it, when you reach those parameters, it goes to a performance grind.
Gotcha.
So around town,
controlled by an ECU, which tells the engine, okay, the driver wants performance now. We're going to sacrifice, economy for that, and it changes the entire mapping, and then obviously there's the mechanical elements too.
So before
it
all
literally
this
allows multiple cam lobes on a single cam.
So before all this, like smart stuff where you can manually control, like, oh, I want to put my car into track mode or sport mode or whatever. It was kind of an early version of that, sort of.
I mean, I don't even know, because it wasn't like a conscious, you flipped a switch and it changed cam. Although there were VTEC controllers that were essentially that. I mean, it let you dial them all the way down, and everybody was like VTEC all the time. That didn't work. That wasn't how the system was supposed to work
all the time.
Yeah,
so
it's
just the so again, for those who don't know, the camshaft controls the valve train opening and closing, and so you're describing two different types of efficiency for the engine.
Well, it's actually more than that. It's an infinite number of like sort of modes, because what it does is it optimizes what's going on for any given scenario.
Right.
Optimizes for both performance and economy simultaneously, basically.
Yeah, now it's like that, but back then it was literally basically had two camshafts on the same.
Right. It was on and off. Today, it's almost an infinite number of cams, and the ECUs in modern cars are able to process 5 million pieces of data at once, or whatever the state of the art is at the moment. And the computers are able to control it constantly. So it's almost like there is no cam. It's like,
that's actually the next step is Koenigsegg free valve.
Absolutely.
Because that is literally infinitely variable. Yeah. There is no mechanical control of the timing. It's all individually actuated solenoids and into the valves.
Yeah. The big thing to consider in our conversation of this car is that it is the originator of all this, and Honda was the first company to apply this in large scale and street cars, and the NSX was like the holy grail version of a variable valve timed.
How was it received worldwide and at home?
It was, the first generation was considered to be by many the finest handling car built. Better than any Ferrari you could buy, better than anything you could buy, BMW, what have you. I can remember the platitudes given to the NSX by the big car magazines like Car and Driver and Road and Track and Motor Trend at the time. And they would always sum up their articles every time the car was reviewed that this is simply the best driving car we've ever tested, type of language. And it was really because it was a no holds barred engineering exercise at building the ultimate street car. That's what Honda set out to do, and that's what they achieved. And let's remember, in the 1990s, Ferraris were not what they are today. They always had magnificent engines, but they largely had crappy reliability. They were very expensive to maintain. Well, they still are, but usually you had to drop the engine completely out of a Ferrari in those days just to change the oil or service it.
Right.
So it was not those were not well thought out, well designed cars. Honda made a well designed everyday hypercar You know, you could literally use it as your daily driver without sacrificing anything.
So people loved the car on initial release. They had that for, over almost 2 decades, right?
15 years.
What's that?
15 years, the first.
15 years,
So
the
almost,
original
all right, 15 years.
generation.
And then the second generation comes out now.
Right. But during that time, to close our conversation of the first generation, it was never a particularly hot selling car.
That's what I was curious about. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were sort of going in that direction. Although the critics and the magazines and everybody loved them, it just never gained traction like it should have, given a car that was so glowingly reviewed.
Was it the price tag? What was it?
No, because it was actually cheaper than all of its competitors, because as we've discussed, that's what Honda always did. They gave you better value than what Americans or Italians or Germans could give you.
Was it just the nameplate? People didn't.
If you ask me, and I have not read this anywhere recently, but if I recall correctly, it was felt that people had a problem spending less money than a Ferrari, but spending big money on a Japanese car, because Japan was never synonymous with sports cars.
Right.
They were associated with reliability, with fuel efficiency. They were never considered a country that produced like true.
They were nerds, not jocks.
Yeah.
I mean, just to break it down, I actually have the sales figures here if you're interested.
Well, they had. I am curious, but it was like, that's true, but they didn't bring any of that to the American market. They already had the S2000. Datsun had the 280Z, and then actually, I think before then it was the Fairlady, and so
They did, but you're talking a different echelon of car.
That's not a supercar. That's a sports car.
I get it. Yeah, they're sports cars. They're little roadsters, and it's not a supercar. But I think it's, anyways. I'm just saying that they didn't bring any of that here.
In the mid-90s, let's boil it down to this. Most people who could afford a $100,000 car in the mid-90s, their mind did not immediately turn to Acura. Right. It went to Porsche, it went to BMW, it went to Ferrari, it went to Lotus, it went to Aston Martin. It never caught on, in spite of the NSX really being better in just about every way than any of those brands.
Right.
And that's why the Halo nameplates came about, was because they wanted to get people okay with spending. I mean, let's look at like late 90s, early 2000s, Toyota and Lexus. They were mostly the same car with a different badge and leather instead of cloth.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
But they were the same car.
Yeah, you could buy a Toyota Land Cruiser or the Lexus LX, 470 or whatever it was called. And they were exactly the same car, except for the badges and the interior.
Yep.
That's it. I mean, it was a Toyota Land Cruiser, period. No change in drivetrain, nothing.
Yep.
And the NSX, though, was different. I mean, this was a bespoke, ground-up hypercar. The other thing I would point to, and Greg, I would be interested in hearing the sales numbers. But in addition to people not associating a Japanese car with a hypercar, the other thing might have been that although the original NSX was a good-looking car, it wasn't fabulous looking. And people spending, 6 figures in those days, they typically wanted to show it off, their money. And a Ferrari, I mean, you had the F40, you had the last iteration of the Testarossa, which was the TR512.
I know you hate those, but I love the Testarossa.
But those cars looked like you spent 6 figures on a car, and an Acura kind of, an NSX kind of didn't. It was good looking, but it wasn't Italian.
It was pedestrian.
Look at pop culture, man. I can recall one single movie that features a first generation NSX.
I can.
TV shows, movies, one out of all of them, one.
What was it? I can't remember.
Pulp Fiction.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The wolf.
The wolf drives an NSX,
Yeah.
and it's on
That's
screen
right.
for
Like 2 seconds
2 seconds
from the rear, and he just tears off.
Very cool car, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing, and that's fair. That's fair. It just didn't have the same pedigree. But what's up with those sales figures, Greg?
All right. So, I mean, I don't know what its competitors were selling at first, but its first 3 years were its only big years. Started off at 1,119 in the US, 156 in Canada. 90, and that was 90. 91 was its peak at 1940 in the US and 253 in Canada. And that was the highest.
Cars, man.
Neither.
No, it's not a lot of cars. And mind you, this wasn't a limited edition car. They would build one for anybody who ordered one. So the point is, in 1991, at its peak, there were only 1,900 people who were interested in buying the car. Now, Ferrari traditionally always caps their production to keep the cars more valuable for the future.
Which was an inadvertent result of their poor sales.
Yeah, but I mean, Ferrari was building more cars, 355 F1s than the NSX was, than Acura was building NSXs. So the car came to a halt in what year, Greg, did the first gen?
2001, I believe.
No, 2005 was the last model year. But that's the funny thing is they actually sold 2005 model years technically for 3 years. The last two were sold in 2007.
And it was the same exact car. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was just leftovers on the lot, which is
when did they pick up the next generation?
10 years later.
2016. Wow. Why such a long gap?
What's also interesting is when they discontinued the first generation, it was lamented that the car was going away. Suddenly there was this outpouring of, what it kind of reminded me of after 9/11, everybody was talking about, the World Trade Center is gone. It was this icon. Do you know that people in New York hated the World Trade Center from the day it was built because it was such a featureless, ugly, boxy design? It was not a beloved building. But once it was gone, people thought about its presence in movies like the remake of King Kong and stuff like that, and romanced it. And something similar happened with the NSX, where suddenly everybody was just so sad that the NSX was going the way of the dodo.
You don't speak ill of the dead. That's what it is.
Correct. And it could be that this outpouring of emotion spurred Honda to make a new one, because I guarantee you it wasn't on their radar when they discontinued the car, because clearly they didn't have a replacement available when the run ended. And in 2016 they shocked the world saying, guess what, we have a new NSX coming out. It carried with it all of the essential engineering and design aspects of the original car. That is to say, a monocoque design, mid-engine, but now with 21st century technology and improvements to VTEC, the entire drivetrain. And what we got was the new NSX.
And this is the second car that we have reviewed during this mid-engine challenge. Shootout. That was first featured in an Iron Man film.
Mm-hmm. That's true. The first one was the R8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I think obviously a few years later, another Iron Man movie came out and the NSX was right there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was funny and interesting.
Yeah. Well, this NSX was once again heralded by reviewers as being one of the best cars in the world. It comes packed with technology. Like, again, Honda threw everything in the kitchen sink to build their Halo car. And it had improved styling, improved drivetrain, you name it, every area they built upon the original considerably. And once again, oddly enough, not a great seller. And now we come to find that this year is going to be the last year of production of the car again, with a replacement not on the horizon. And that car is called the Acura NSX S.
Yeah, the Type
It's
S.
the car Type S, and it's the car that we're going to review today, boys.
Can I just say, well, I'd like to hear your theory on this one, Rob. Why do you think this one wasn't a seller?
It could very well be, you know, the adage,
same
old, that, you know, people just, I mean, I think Lexus has been somewhat successful in marketing like true sports versions of their cars, like the F line that they're pushing. Those cars are not as, to use just a really colloquial term, not as good as the German offerings in shootouts. Mercedes and BMW always beat the F Sport versions of Lexus's line, but they sell. And what's more, Lexus was very successful in marketing the LFA, their hypercar, which sported a V10 engine that revved to 9,000 RPMs, which many people say is the single greatest power plant ever manufactured in a car. But they limited production of the LFA to, I think it was 500 units or 499 units, and it was done.
Well, let's be honest. If that's your market, right, that kind of thing, the new NSX falls short because it doesn't have a high-strung V10. It has a twin turbo V6 with a couple electric motors.
That's correct.
Like there isn't the same visceral experience, and it's going to be hard to say that, especially when the EcoBoost V6 in the GT. But I think that might be something that people have poked the GT for as well. Right.
And let's look at it the other way at the same time and recognize this is the only non-V8 in our supercar shootout. And you got to give credit to Honda in terms of their engineering and technology to manufacture a V6 that is going to compete with high output V8s, in the same segment. V6s obviously with turbos and electric motors offer much better efficiency than even the best V8s can offer. But they do so at a cost, I'd argue, of some emotion. I'm very American in this respect. All of my cars have got a V8, that's what I dig.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, I dig the immediacy of V8 torque as opposed to having to wait for a turbo to spool up. I love the sound of the V8. I love the heritage of the V8, which stretches as far back as cars do.
I just love saying it. V8, V8, V8.
Yeah. But, Honda is, as we're going to see, Honda has built a very competitive car using a better balance, smaller capacity, more fuel efficient turbocharged V6. But again, that could have something to do why it's not beloved.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I got to tell you, and we'll get to this obviously because we're going to rank everything, but I also think it has something to do with the looks. Man, I'll just leave it at that. But
okay, we'll get into the looks obviously when we vote, but I've seen them on the road and in person. They're much more impressive looking than they are in photographs. I will give it that. It's very angular. It looks very stealth fightery. The original stealth fighter, the F-117. There's all sorts of angles on it and stuff that are unusual. It's not as bland, if I may be so bold, as the first generation NSX, which was kind of.
I love the first generation.
I'm not saying I didn't like it, but the styling has gotten more cutting edge. And I mean that in a Cadillac sense of the word. The original CTS had cutting, they're
Yes.
cutting edge.
I think the original CTS was gorgeous.
Gorgeous to this day, and it's held up.
No, it hasn't. Those angular headlights, they're
especially in the CTS VR.
No, the new CTS and the second generation CTS.
I'm not quite as
fantastic.
I'm not quite as big a fan of current Cadillac styling as I was back in those days. When the CTS first came out, man, that looked like nothing else on the road. And I came close to buying one instead of a BMW, to be honest.
I agree with you. They were great looking cars. I just at the time, but to me they have not aged well. And the latest generations are gorgeous. But anyways, we're
here to talk about the NSX.
We have an NSX to build, so let's get into that.
Now, guys, I've built this car, and I got to tell you, their configurator is one of the best on the planet. Maybe not as good as Aston Martin, which takes the cake.
Well, to hear you say that, that's high praise.
Yes, it is high praise, and you'll notice that you've got a movie of different angles and images going on, and that goes on throughout the configuration. It's really nice that you don't have to click, different angle buttons and stuff to see the front or the back.
Well, I see our starting price up in the upper right-hand corner. Okay.
It's covered up with your faces. Let me just move
okay.
the window.
Well, our starting price is $171,495.
I see it now, which is not cheap.
Oof. Yeah. So now how do I change this color? Okay. Ooh, I see right off the bat. Is this gonna look good? Nope, I don't like the shade. Maybe it's my monitor, but
let's wait to see the full car.
A little bit too orange for me.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I take back what I said about the looks of this thing.
I told you, it's got some angles on it. There's some, the Corvette borrowed some from this car. Chevy definitely borrowed from the NSX.
Right, so how many colors do we have in the palette?
We have quite a few, but I want you guys to notice. I don't know if you can see it. Starting with Long Beach Blue Pearl, it starts adding 1,000. Right. Then we get into the $6,000 paints.
Whoa!
And right off the bat, I see two that I'm gonna like.
Don't they have like a bronze color, like a brown?
We have this thermal orange peel. Oh, that's not at all what it looked like on the.
Yeah,
that's a killer car, dude.
That looks pretty good.
That color's all wrong for that car, in my opinion.
Really?
Any of these colors look good. That car.
Let's see what $6,000 gets us. Can you imagine paying $6,000?
Well, it's gray. This is matte.
I know, but $6,000 for gray.
Yeah, hey, Mercedes charges more than that for.
Wait, don't change the color yet, Greg. There we go. That's what I want to see.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I would pay $6,000 for this.
Whoa!
Look at that color.
It's somewhere between like Grabber blue and Ford Performance blue, huh? Okay,
and it's pearl, not metallic. So I want to see what the red looks like, even though red's not my color. I'm curious. Ooh.
Sheesh.
Ooh.
I'm more digging the blue.
Yeah, I want the blue. Like, if I'm going to spend this money, I think this is the color.
What's interesting also, a couple of things I might mention, they don't have a non-matte silver, which is odd because Acura's always come in silver.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I don't know if you guys noticed, but a lot of these names are Formula One related. Curva means curve or turn in Italian. 130R white. 130R is a corner at the Suzuka racetrack where Ayrton Senna tested this car. And it's called 130R because it's a 130-degree radius turn that's taken flat out at 200 miles an hour. And then you'll notice there's Indy yellow because Honda is involved in IndyCar racing. Long Beach Grand Prix. Casino because there's a casino at Monte Carlo, the famous Monte Carlo casino. So I'm kind of digging these names,
So could I just not because we're going to do it, but I just want to see what Long Beach blue looks like.
Sure.
Like I get it, it's lighter, it's probably a little closer to grabber. I'm just curious what that's not a bad looking color.
No, it is not. I
but it
gotta
is
say,
not my blue pearl.
That
So,
either one of
Nouvelle?
those blue are my favorite so far. In fact, I like the color that you hated, Greg. I like that yellow a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I wish I could see a gloss silver, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
kinda
I mean,
disappointed.
let's look at the.
Whoa.
Well, that's white pearl. That probably is about as close as you're going to get from the factory, anyway.
And
And then what is
130R.
130? Okay, it's just a bright white versus a pearl white.
Eh,
So that
not-
pearl white probably looks gorgeous in person. Again, I don't know that it fits this car.
I'm kind of, to be honest with you guys, I kind of like the Long Beach blue pearl. I think I like it better than the $6,000 Nuvo.
Really? See, it just seems a little plain. And again, we're looking at pictures on a computer screen.
I think it's really bold, and I love the way it looks with those graphite colored wheels. I think,
And that's just too bold for you? I mean, that's just too blue, too purple, maybe?
what? Oh,
this one. I
it
just
changed
switched it.
over.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
see the side of the car again.
I don't care for that Nouvelle blue.
I see. I'm
Actually, that angle I like it.
I'm kind of in love with
I
that.
could go with either one. It doesn't matter to me. The only thing that we should consider is it adds $6,000 to the price, which is a lot.
I
of
mean,
money.
Long Beach adds $1,000. Like it's still Long Beach is still an elevated option.
Right. It's up to you guys. I don't have any skin in this game. So let's see what black looks like, just out of curiosity.
Oh,
Looks
yeah.
like kind of like a 6th gen Camaro from the back a little bit.
What?
Kind of, I'm interested.
There's some
to see what
touches.
the front looks like. It looks good with that carbon fiber, though. Black always looks good with carbon fiber.
Anything looks good with carbon fiber.
That's a mean looking car. I dig the graphite wheels with black too. It's up to you guys. I got no skin in the game, so
Let me see.
I mean, do
let
you
me
want me
see
to go
yellow
white?
again.
Yellow again? Maybe it's just the shadow of the recessed part of the hood that makes it look orange.
no, it's definitely got a touch of orange in
Yeah.
it. It's
I like
not
that.
like a mustard yellow, It's more
I
like
could probably live with that.
it's like stoplight yellow or school bus yellow kind of.
Well, especially since it's also got pearl in it. So it's probably got a little bit of depth, a little bit more depth than your average yellow.
Where are you at, Vincent?
I really like the yellow. I didn't care for either one of those blues. And the only other color that I saw that was pretty good was that gray that you guys don't like.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't
didn't like
dislike
it.
it. I don't
Yeah.
like paying $6,000 for it.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of matte. If this was gloss, I'd be arguing for this. Hands down.
I'd go with this.
Let's go with this.
Yeah, I like it. Okay.
Yeah, just go with
Okay.
it. All
All
right.
right. So next is interior.
All right. I think you have to click the right. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So we got
Interior.
what is orchid? Okay.
It's all right. No, not for me.
Really?
No.
I don't like that interior at all. It looks cheap.
Really?
I don't like the two-tone. I don't like the contrast stitching. I don't.
So okay,
yeah.
so this is a different option. This is ebony.
I actually like orchid. I think orchid looked pretty sharp.
The gray.
Yeah.
Is that really gray? Am I just seeing that wrong? Or is that like a silver gray? Or is that
no,
tan?
it looks gray to me, like very pale gray.
like gray? I'm good with. If it's tan,
It's
I
not
don't like it.
tan. It's definitely not tan.
Man,
I
I mean,
like gray.
What do you think?
you what? I don't like any of these.
I
How?
don't mind this at all.
How do you not like this?
I don't like it at all. It looked, yeah, I don't. What did you say earlier, Rob? It's like pedestrian. It's just like,
Well,
other
it
cars
lacks emotion, and
Yeah.
that's the thing about all Japanese cars to me. It lacks soul.
I like the
it
red.
has soul.
there's not one interior option that you picked that I liked, Greg.
Okay, so they've handed you an order form saying we're giving you this. Which one are you picking?
All black. All black, I guess. The two-tone makes it worse for me.
But even the black has that red.
Yeah,
stitching.
black has red, and then and then
I don't dig the red at all. See, that's why I liked Orchid, because then all the stitching and everything is the same color.
Yeah, but I hate that white. It looks terrible.
Really? I don't mind that. That's really odd that you and I are sort of role reversing here, because I typically like monotone.
And you guys are always liking the red, and I'm surprised nobody likes the red.
No, it's because they're not. It's not solid red and doesn't carry throughout. It just looks like an afterthought. I don't like it. I guess I'd go with Orchid with Rob. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think I would like ebony a lot more if it took some of these silver accents and either made them black or red.
I would, an all black interior without the red stitching, I think, would be
I think Orchid, I think Orchid's the most cohesive of all of them, and that's not saying a lot.
Yeah, that's why I like the Orchid from what we're offered. That's
all right. So Orchid it is. And then maybe we get to change something with the seats.
Just power. Let's see. Semi.
Oh, here's full leather, and it looks like it's all black.
Oh. Okay. Wait. Why do we?
I'm not
full leather as opposed to what?
Oh, it's only available with. We have to go back and get rid of Orchid. And
so we'd have to go back to red to get full. Okay.
Or black. I'd prefer black. So click on interior.
We'll go interior. I'm gonna
go
to red.
To ebony.
Oh, ebony. Okay.
Ebony. We'll go. And then let's see our seats.
Still got your red contrast.
No. Oh, sorry.
wait, hold on.
You gotta beep that.
It's all right.
I say go back to Orchid and we'll just deal with the Alcantara.
Okay. Yeah.
What deal with Alcantara? What kind of first world problem is that?
Well, dude, I'm paying we're gonna be well over 200 grand. So
I'm just saying.
Ayrton Senna would be rolling over in
his grave. Yeah.
No, I don't know about that, but
all right. So
all right.
Now we'll go to wheels.
Wheels, I think they only offer black or these really hot magnesium or
graphite.
Yeah, well, they call it shark gray, which is on there.
No, I dig these.
Or
I love gray wheels right now. That's my thing.
Let me just see what the black looks like. I think there might be a little too much contrast, but yeah.
Yeah,
well, that does look kind of sharp, but I like that better.
The wheel style is commendable. Greg, you and I love 5-spoke wheels. So
yeah,
I kind of dig the style, but I think it definitely looks better in graphite with a silver car.
For sure.
Yeah, the sharp gray. I mean, the black, don't get me wrong, the black looks good. This just looks better.
This looks better, yeah.
All right, so brakes, obviously, red, right? Or do we want to look at other colors?
Oh, for $10,000, we can have carbon ceramics with red calipers. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of gray, though, all of a sudden in the wheel opening. Did you notice that?
Yeah, because it went to the carbon rotor.
Yeah. I think that looks looks better, but
let's be honest. Carbon rotors have never looked good because from their pure aesthetics, they've looked good because of what they are.
And they dust off like nobody's business.
So the question is, do we want the carbon ceramic?
Up to you guys.
I mean, if I'm spending this much on a car, I'm doing it.
Go for it. Done.
So, and we're good on the red, not the orange.
Come on. We're always in a
just checking. Engine cover. So they've got the regular NSX with a little bit of red, or you get carbon fiber for $3,600.
I mean, I wouldn't choose that in my own car, but you love carbon fiber. So, hey, knock yourself
I mean,
out.
I would opt for this, honestly, because it's open. You can see it. I'd opt for it.
I just never would spring for almost $4,000 for a tiny bit of carbon in an
But if you
engine
think
bay.
about it, that's like 0.5%.
Yeah, but you're never going to, when are you ever going to be staring lovingly into your engine bay?
I do all the time. What are you talking about? I seriously, I do all the time.
No, I said I was fine with it.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm also saying I wouldn't blow that money on something so insignificant.
Well, if car manufacturers were paying attention, they would realize how many people are like me and would blow stupid money on carbon fiber.
Yeah, that's why they do it, because they make maximum profit from fools like us who
If I could get the carbon fiber dash kit from the Mach 1 into my Mustang, I'd do it.
Yeah.
And that's just.
But at least you're looking at that every day. See, that's
Yeah.
my point. When we built the GT500, I was the one who argued for the carbon fiber dash.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it looks great and you're seeing it every day. I mean, I'd notice the carbon fiber in my engine bay about once every 6 months and think to myself, I dropped 4K on that. I'd hate myself.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what the carbon fiber interior. I didn't see anything worth $4,000 or $2,500.
I didn't see anything at all. Was it clicking? Oh, okay. That's carbon and that's it?
I don't know.
You can't even
okay,
blow-
wait, look up here.
Instrument binnacle is carbon.
Okay.
And there must be the top of the steering wheel also.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, screw it.
Okay.
That I'd do without hesitation over the engine bay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'm a huge fan of Sirius radio. That's all I listen to. So definitely for $500, throw that in.
yeah,
100%.
especially on long drives when your podcast and your audiobook run out and you can just turn on, one of the comedy stand-up channels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or an occasional visit with Howard Stern. I don't mind. So
Yeah, but you have to get the upgraded package for him. You can't
I'm
get
sure
the
this comes with it.
Hey, dude, this configurator, like you said, is super
fabulous.
good. Yeah, it's like detailed.
It really is. Yes, it is.
So what is does the XM change anything hardware wise? It doesn't look like it.
I
It's
doubt
just
it for $500.
I'm guessing it's a little dingus on top of the car.
Mm.
All right, lightweight package. Wait a minute. So we got to upgrade the brakes again?
Huh? What does lightweight give you? Rotors, carbon fiber engine cover, carbon fiber interior sport package
So it gives you everything that we already
okay, so it
selected.
okay.
for less money. Let's see if the price goes down. No, it went up by $10,000.
Did it really?
$13,000. Yeah.
No way.
What the hell?
What?
It goes down by $13,000.
Well, yeah, now it does, but we were higher than that when we came in here. Because we do this, we'd selected all these options.
Oh, so now we have to reselect those options?
No, because if we do the lightweight package, it just gives us everything we've already selected. It's just a package that comes with all that instead of all cart from what it looks like.
But why is it $13,000 more than the standalone items?
Well, it's not because look, if we click signature sport, it gives us back iron rotors. It takes away our carbon fiber engine cover.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so it's
fair enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then all that's left is accessories, I think. You got your carbon door sills for $1,500.
$1,600.
Good Lord.
Oh, thank God, boys. They have 3-digit priced wheel locks. You know how much I like to pay for factory wheel locks, especially when it's triple digits.
And by the way, can we just look at this real quick? The battery charger, you can tell by the shape of that. That's a C-Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And my C-Tech was like $48 on Amazon, and it's been amazing.
Isn't that NSX logo worth over $200 to you, my man?
I mean, I think if I can pass on the illuminated carbon fiber door sills for 1,600, I'm going to pass on the marked up C-Tech Charger.
I'm with you, brother.
Like, you know what? And the thing is, the wheel lock bolts, the reason I would maybe be okay with that is because you can't walk into AutoZone and buy wheel lock bolts.
That's true. And maybe the dealer would throw them in as but
I mean, who's stealing NSX wheels? I don't know what pattern they are, so maybe they're a little more universal than.
I don't know, but I wouldn't want those wheels to be stolen.
Yeah,
and I always select premium mats, but I get the
look at the price.
Yeah, but I get the dealer to throw them in. If you're spending $200,000, they're going to give me floor mats.
What I mean, I need to know what makes them worth $1,200. I mean, WeatherTechs are only $200.
They're how much for the floor mats?
$1,255.
They're filled with baby crocodile skins.
Oh my God.
I mean, does it have do you have to wash it with the tears of angels? What's going on? Like, it's diamond infused. Okay. It's worth
baby ducks.
I saw that on something the other day. Is that where did you get that from somewhere? Is that where
maybe, I don't know, subconsciously.
I feel like it might have been Family Guy or something. It was something, and there was like the reference to stepping on baby ducks.
Vinny, interestingly, we are quite shy of $200,000. I thought we were headed in that direction too. And we loaded this car up pretty much, didn't we? Except for the $6,000 paint option where that's ridiculous.
I'm sorry. I can't spend $1,200. I've
never heard of $1,200 floor mats. Like even in an Aston Martin, they're not $1,200.
I mean, is this like Hunter Biden art? Like, what's going on here? Yeah, I just said that, Vinny. Look at his face. He's like,
hey, man.
I mean, seriously, like, okay, so are we going to get a nice, here we go. Launch gallery.
No, that's a good looking car. Look at that front end. That's very Lamborghini. It's very C8. The flying buttresses behind the doors are very Ford GT. They did a nice job borrowing and stealing here little bits and pieces. You know,
can I tell you one thing I don't like about the front end?
Yeah,
the headlight shape. Not the shape. I'll take the shape.
Oh, just the multi-segment.
Yes. Why couldn't we have like a solid bar or something there?
You think those are xenons or LEDs?
Oh, LEDs. They've got to be LEDs. They remind me of the body kit for 3rd gen Firebirds, where they put 3 of the square narrow headlights in each side.
Yeah.
That is one little, and it's a minor gripe. It really is.
Let's scroll through some of these pictures, see a profile. Okay. The interior for me, I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's kind of bland and soulless. And
I can't stand that interior.
Does anybody else get the vibe of like late 1990s Honda Civic eBay racing seats?
Yes, that's exactly. Those are like APC.
Yep.
Freaking,
Raid 2
AutoZone specials, dude.
That's
the wheels are I gotta say, I dig these wheels. I dig the design, I dig the finish.
They fit the car. I don't, as a standalone, they're not for me, but they fit the car.
Do we know if Brembo's doing the brakes? Did we see that anywhere?
I would imagine they are. I didn't see anything specifically. I mean, for OEM, Brembo is like ubiquitous.
Man, that's look at that front. That extra little bulge. That I like that.
It's got much more flair, I have to say, than the R8. But
it's a striking car. This color is not, it doesn't do it for me. I think maybe a more vibrant color would set it off, like we were looking at in the beginning, but I don't know.
You'll notice, Greg, all that carbon fiber is standard. We
Mhm.
never opted for a package. Whereas McLaren and Ferrari, you get into big money trying to.
What we determine? Something like 40 or 50 grand worth of carbon fiber.
Something like that. And I'll bet you it's even more expensive on the Ferrari.
Yeah, no kidding.
Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to push for carbon on the Ferrari because that's a little bit.
Then you're cheating.
Or at least
you're gonna push for it on the interior.
Okay, yeah.
For a particular reason that I'm not going to divulge right now, but we'll get into when we actually build it. The exterior carbon, I might agree with you.
Yeah. Am I crazy, or do those pedals look like garbage?
It's not an inspiring interior, boys. It just isn't. And I find that endemic with Japanese cars in general. They're just soulless to me on the inside. They're practical. They have nice materials, but there's just no.
I'm picking up some very heavy vibes from a previous car I owned, 2007 Honda Civic. There's a lot of design cues here, and I'm not necessarily saying that in a negative way, because I love that car as my daily driver. Like, it was a great commuter car. I don't expect that in a 200,000, but that's also going into the story of the original Ford GT using Ford Focus window switches. Nobody in those two extremes is going to realize, right?
But I mean, hell, Aston Martin for years was using Ford switchgear as well when they were owned by Ford. And, you want to talk about a travesty.
But I mean, this steering wheel has very heavy Honda Civic
if
vibes. You
want to go back to the conversation of why people have never gravitated to this car in mass, I think it's things like this that they
just missed the mark.
Contribute to it. It's just. I mean, when you look at the McLaren interior, which was just covered in Alcantara and was just so purpose-built and aggressive, and when we get to the Ferrari, which is, the opposite extreme, it's so, luxurious and appointed and everything. And then you look at this and it's just like, yeah, it just looks like an Acura to me, an Integra, or they just. Japanese cars just don't have emotion for me. And literally the only big ticket Japanese car I would ever think of owning, that Lexus LFA, was something special. I sat in one. I've never driven one, but I've walked around it at the LA Auto Show, and that car was something.
Right.
But it was also $500,000. So. It ought to be, but still, I mean, we're at what are we at? 191,
something like that. I gotta close this to get back to the thing.
Yeah, that for $191,000, you ought to have something a little bit more special in that.
I mean, I will say this. I do think it appeals to me a little more than the R8.
Bro, last episode we built an impeccable car, man. It was incredible, and the interior was one of my favorite parts. And this one is just not there, man. It's like Rod said, it's so, like, I don't want to say soulless, but like,
I think maybe this should have come after the R8. It would have got a little bit better if we hadn't had that McLaren.
Oh, without a doubt, this is one rung above the R8. Well, maybe two if we're talking about the Corvette too, but
in terms of aesthetics, I mean, we haven't compared.
I mean, not to ruin what we're about to talk about, but I think if it was my money, I don't think this would beat the Corvette for me.
Well, why don't we get to it and we'll see.
Yep.
I haven't made my mind up yet. I can say right now that out of all the cars we've built, the R8 was the one that spoke to me the least. I think this car will slot in a little higher than the R8 for me, but where it compares to the Corvette, I think we're going to have to listen to some performance numbers out of Greg. And
well, now here's a question, guys. When we're factoring this in, this is the only configurator that has broken it down into the cents. We're at $191,000, $128
And
25 cents. So like, do we care about going into that, or can we just write that off?
I think that's typical Japanese efficiency right there for you to include the cents, but
yeah. So, I mean, all right. So I guess our first category is obviously power. I don't know how you want to split this up because it has 2 power plants. If you want to do a combined total, again, we're in the Type S. So the Type S is, because we're going to have to mix and match some specs here.
It's all that you can buy right now. So we go with Type S number.
So the Type S number for that is 600 horsepower combined, but all of our performance data is going to be from previous models, which had 573. So I mean, we're not talking a ton.
Yeah, you're talking 27 horsepower. Yeah, that's not going to make a huge difference. Would that even equal a 10th in the 0 to 60, or?
I doubt it. Actually, you know what? I can compare the rated. So start talking about the 600 horsepower between you two, and I'm going to pull up some stuff and do a quick.
Sure. Well, that's no joke. It's nothing to sniff at, and it certainly beats the Corvette. I think it comes
weigh.
How much is that?
Yeah, how much does this thing weigh?
3,900 pounds.
Okay.
It's very well, you should love it. It's very Mopar like.
Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
It's no lightweight like the
McLaren.
The Challenger almost weighs as much as this thing.
My Hellcat, it's going to be 4,500 pounds, 4,600 pounds.
I don't know what the Ferrari is going to weigh, but I think the McLaren took the cake for.
I think it
featherweights
did too.
At
I
believe it did.
Feather light, man. That was nuts.
I did not expect that thing to be that light.
Okay, so this thing a little heavy. 600 horsepower.
Greg, what was the power output of the R8? Do you have that on hand?
I don't have that on hand.
If you have a second to look that up.
Why is this not open?
Are you sleepy, Vinny?
What's that?
You seem sleepy tonight.
No, I'm not. You guys entertain me pretty well. But maybe this car did kind of put me to sleep, man. This that interior, I totally lost interest.
We're not there yet. We're not.
I know we're not scoring that yet. Yeah.
Okay. R8 was right at the same power level.
600 on the nose.
602.
Okay.
And we gave it. Since this is one of the few, I think that genuinely you can compare to the two directly. We all gave it 3.75s across the board. Well, I gave it a 3.8 because I
think I would do that again. It's apples for apples. So
actually, I'm going to make a quick argument for giving it a little bit more. Because it does 100 horsepower of that is electric, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, 47 horsepower each. So
so that would be instantaneous.
Yeah, you get a little. So I'm gonna give it a little more. I mean, I feel like it should be rewarded for having a little bit more instant torque, right? I mean,
so would you go so far as a 4?
No, 3.9.
Okay, you sold me. I'll do 3.9.
Okay.
I guess I'll bump to 3.8 this time.
Okay. I mean, because it's a minor difference.
What's the torque output on this thing?
Combined total is 476. Well, I'm sorry, that's the old one. Let me look at the current. They don't list torque out. Oh, 492.
It's not a hell of a lot of torque. Like
Not
you get
especially,
that.
huh?
I mean, if you think about it, 600, 500, it's not bad. You know, it's 600 horsepower, 500
Yeah.
torque.
Yeah, but
We're
you
doing a
know,
little bit of rounding.
a
But it's
lot of manufacturers now are, you know, torque is really what's important in terms of straight line performance, getting off the line. You know, and a lot of manufacturers now are trying to, you know, make the torque figures comparable to the horsepower figures. Perfect example being the 392 engine from Dodge, which has identical torque and horsepower numbers.
but all that means is it doesn't spin as high because torque will always equal horsepower at 52.
Right. I'm just talking about, you know, launching.
I know. I get it. It's. I mean, personally, as far as daily driving a vehicle, I prefer something with more high RPM power because then when it's crappy outside, it's a lot less of a handful to deal with.
How does
wheel spin and then the traction control intervene?
How does
sitting there like a fool? Yeah.
How does power come on with a hybrid like this?
It's going to have a very strong bottom end.
Yeah. That no doubt they engineer it so that the electric gets you off the line. You know, because in any car, like going from 0 to 30 takes longer than going from 30 to 60 because, you know, you start getting into the power band and the car takes off. So, you know, the electric motors will definitely be on full song instantly to, you know, that's the secret to like the Tesla, you know, Plaid, which has that incredible 1.8 seconds 0 to 60 or whatever it is. It's just pure electric power.
That,
you know.
Yeah, the Tesla is incredible, but have you seen that new behemoth Hummer 0 to 60 in 3 seconds?
No. I haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, the all electric.
Well, isn't that the one that makes like 11,000 pound-feet of torque or something?
Yeah, it probably also weighs 11,000 pounds.
Yeah.
More than a Hellcat.
Spit take. But I mean, so I guess when we're talking about only having 492 pound-feet of combined torque, that kind of belies what the torque curve looks like, I think.
Right.
Again, it's still, that is the combined torque rating. So
Mhm.
that's the number I think we have
Well,
to go
look,
by.
it only beats one car out of this shootout, and that's the Corvette. You know, so it's not going to get a 4 out of me because, you know,
Yeah,
there are 3 other cars that that have the same or better output than this car. So
Agreed.
I'm ready to move on.
All right, so now we're going to handling.
Yep.
So for handling, we'll go with we got a skid pad number of 1.06G.
Which falls short of the McLaren, and
But it does better than everything else.
doesn't.
That's an impressive number.
Well, I mean, the fact that we live in an era of plus 1G lateral handling is just, it's insanity. I remember in the 80s being a kid and like a Porsche 928, you know, had a 0.86 G. And that was, you know, people were just like losing their minds over that. So
well, I remember seeing over 1G, you know, dynamic actually driving on track and going, oh my God, I broke a G.
Yeah.
And then even though it was dynamic, not not the skid pad, but still.
So where were we on the McLaren?
The McLaren, where did I pull up the McLaren file?
Yeah, it would speak to reason. It'll be just shy of that, I guess.
I think we gave them McLaren 5s, if I recall correctly.
It's loading, sorry.
Excuse me.
Oh, that's great. Excel didn't seem to load anything. Uh-oh, boys, we may not have our McLaren Excel
Oh
sheet.
no.
Oh no. Well,
Yeah, it's
one
literally
of the
not loading.
one of the three of us has to go back, watch the episode, and tell them, and it's not me.
Oh,
Not
just
it.
got it. It just loaded. It took forever, but it just loaded. Okay, so 4.75, 4.8, and 4.8.
Okay, so I'm at 4.5 on the Acura.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Do you want to include Nürburgring in handling or in performance?
Absolutely. Let's see the numbers.
It is 7 minutes 36 seconds.
And that's kind of like a lot.
It's right about where we were. This whole class has been in between 725 and 740.
Really, even the McLaren?
Mm-hmm. No,
There's a
actually,
lot.
no. The McLaren.
No, McLaren was like 711.
Yeah, the McLaren boogies, man. That's that 1.5 G's. Whatever.
Yeah, 708.
708.
Wow, that's cooking. And we gave that thing a 5
No,
or 4.75.
4.75.
Yeah, so that kind of changes my opinion of this one then, because that's real world.
Again, it doesn't for me because
there's so many variables in
yeah,
this
I'm not
timing. It's just a ballpark number because
I'm not willing to ding it that hard just on Nürburgring.
You know, if we had numbers from one publication with the same driver on the same day for all these cars, I would weigh that heavier than like a generic lateral handling number. But because we don't, what if it was raining, you know, at the Nürburgring on a particular day? What if the driver was up all night, you know, drinking the night before? I mean, you just don't know.
I mean, I'm still not going to score it as high. Like, I'm not saying that I'm giving it. I'm just saying I'm not going to hit it as hard. I'm
inclined to give it like a 4.3.
All right, I'll move down to a 4.4. All right.
Damn, you guys both went higher than I expected. When I'm sitting here saying I'm not going to hit it so hard.
Well, we gave the McLaren
it's a 1.06 G car. I mean, that's astonishing. That's
exactly
huge. So I'm not.
You said 4.5, Rob?
No, what did I bump it down to, Vinny? 4.4.
You said yeah. Now it's at 4.3.
Yeah, let's do 4.4 for me.
Well, since I gave, I'll go 4.5. Like I said, I'm not going to hit it as hard, because it still is a 1.06 G car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hit it just because it was a little bit slower on the. Now, if you want to hit it, we're gonna hit it now. I mean, that's the interior.
Well, I think we've all voiced our opinions. It's a very generic. I mean, you know, this is a configurator. You might sit in the actual car and be more impressed because the materials that don't show, you know, in these pictures are nicer, but just the overall design just does nothing for me. I mean, it might as well be a kind of like a rental car, you know. It's just
seriously.
I'm sure it's not cheap materials, but like the actual layout and design is
even just, the stitch.
I'll forget what it looks like a week from this podcast. I won't even remember it. You know, it's just kind of forgettable.
Yeah. But see, I will remember it because it reminds me so much of my Civic that I had. You know what I mean?
That's not a
no,
good
it's
thing.
not. It's not. I just, but that's the thing. That Civic was so comfortable when I was driving, you know, 4 hours a day.
This is not a commuter car, Greg.
I understand, but it's still evoking some positive memories.
Yeah, but you're an outlier. That memory is like yours.
I know.
You know, compared to that McLaren, and really, I mean, I wasn't crazy about that central row of buttons on the Corvette, but like at least the Corvette had that design element that made it
Yeah, it was like a cockpit. It was cool. You know?
Yeah, and like the R8, I mean, Audis do interiors better than just about anyone. And I haven't yet, until this car, looked at an interior in any of them and been like, wow, that is just milk toast.
Yeah, I
Here
didn't
I
like
am.
anything about it, man. Not even the stitch pattern on the seats.
Just nothing is remarkable.
There's
And
nothing.
maybe, you know, maybe they had to build this thing. They had a price point in mind, and they got at some point during the design phase and realized they were going to exceed that. Notice we loaded the car up and it was under $200,000. So it could be they had to sacrifice something to keep it there.
Listen, if you want to skimp on, you know, whatever, it's
You don't-
not where the driver sits.
I
It
don't
shouldn't
think you save money on design. You would save money on materials.
It shouldn't be where you skimp, because the most important part of a car, really, if you reflect on it, is the tactile
Exactly.
feel of the
But
interior, because that's where you are.
I'm just saying,
Um,
like my point is, I'm not defending the car. You're not paying the engineers less to design a more pedestrian car. They're
Right.
not. This was not a money. This was their best foot forward.
Well,
In
like
their
I
opinion.
said, to me, Japanese cars lack emotion, lack soul, and this is a perfect example of it. This is the apex predator out of Japan. You know, this is the most expensive car Japan makes. It's the highest performance car Japan makes. And it's just got a completely forgettable interior. So, I mean, I'm somewhere, I'll listen to what you guys say first, but I'm thinking in the neighborhood of high twos, low threes.
That's exactly where I was at. 2.5, man. It was lackluster. It was boring. If I sat in that car, I might think differently, like you said, Rob. Or if I was a passenger in that car, I might be like, "This is a nice car," you know. But looking at these photos and just like reading the options, and just the fact that we didn't even have the option for an all black interior, you know, like no contrast stitching. That's bullshit to me, for lack of a better word. So yeah, 2.5.
All right. See, I was gonna go 3, and the only thing that got it up to 3 for me was the carbon fiber, obviously. And I know that's a running joke, but seriously, I like it. I think it was well executed. And those seats, as much as I want to make fun of them for looking like 1990s rave to APC seats, they look pretty comfortable. Like, but nothing about it excites me. It is
$1,500 floor mats. Get out of here, man.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
when we didn't do it.
ridiculous.
It's part of the interior.
But you know, it says something to me that I like the R8's interior more.
Well, honestly, if I've been in plenty of Audis and lesser Audis than the R8, and I mean, I had a friend who had a late 90s, I believe it was, A4 sedan. And I mean, the interior in that Audi, like, I mean, you could start with so many things, like all the gauges are red because they took the time to think at night. Using the color red doesn't dilate or doesn't make your pupils get smaller. That's why submarines, when they go into attack mode and they submerge, the lighting shifts to red because it opens your pupils up more. I mean, they factor things like that in at Audi, and the materials are top notch. There's no cheap plastic or anything like that. I can't really say for sure what the quality is inside this Acura, but I can again reiterate that the overall design is just left me pretty cold. So Vinny, you said 2.5?
Yes, sir.
I'll go like 2.8.
Okay.
Greg?
I'm at 3. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna give them the comfort. I mean, literally, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I think somebody who grew up in the Fast and the Furious era designed this interior.
That's what it looks like, for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if you got in and there was like glow underneath the dash and stuff.
I'm just saying, like,
And frankly, I didn't see any, like on the interior, I didn't see any, unique features that a lot of the other cars
there's
had.
nothing special.
Yeah, there's just nothing that makes it stand out. That was my point with the Corvette's row of buttons in the center column. Like, I didn't particularly like that, but I remember it and it stood out. And certainly the best interior we've seen together, being the McLaren. It was a minimalist design too, like the Acura.
Gorgeous.
But it was just so focused and just so race car like. It was memorable. This is just not memorable.
There was Alcantara everywhere, the dash, the steering wheel, all of it. It was gorgeous.
Yeah. So what's next, Gregory?
Performance. So here's our numbers.
Okay.
We've got 0 to 60 of 3.1, which puts it in the range of, well, the R8, if depending on who you listen to, Audi or the test magazines. So it's.
But the McLaren and the Corvette beat it.
Yeah, the McLaren was the best at 2.7. Corvette was 2.8. Again, if you listen to Audi, they were 2.9. If you listen to, I believe it was Car and Driver, it was 3.1. This was 3.1, so that puts it on par with R8. 0 to 100 is 7 seconds, an 11.2 second quarter mile.
Wow, that's quick.
But it's still slower than the rest of them.
That's slower than.
Yeah, but for a V6, like, even
but that electric torque should be.
That's what's throwing me off. I figured it would have a faster 0 to 60, and it would have a faster quarter mile than it does.
Well, I'm gonna throw a little bit of maybes in there, but it's got a top speed of 191. But let me throw some maybes in there, okay? It's got a 9-speed dual clutch transmission. At some point, there is, I believe, a performance trade-off where you can have too many gears. Because even though it's a DCT, so it's shifting lightning fast, those shifts still take time. If each shift takes 0.1 seconds, let's just say, right? And there's 9 of them, that's almost a full second of shifting in your quarter mile.
It's still off throttle and in neutral. So there's no power, it is a gap. And you're right, you add it up and that's quite a bit.
So I mean, it's.
And what was, we selected the carbon ceramic brakes, so it'd probably be hard for you to find braking numbers for that specifically.
That's the thing. There's no braking numbers were just not prevalent. Let me try being specific to the carbon ceramic. I didn't think about that before the show.
Yeah, it's so as far as performance is concerned, so far it's right on par with its interior.
It's the slowest out of all of them. But slow. I mean, having said that, it is by no means. I mean, any car that's doing 11-second quarter miles is not slow.
Yeah, but
we are comparing these cars.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, it's again lackluster.
Yeah, I mean, look, most of the muscle cars we built are beating it in the quarter mile, and those are cars that either weigh similarly or even more in the case of the Hellcat. But the Red Eye was, if I'm not mistaken, was a 10-second car. The GT500 was solidly a 10-second car. And I think the Camaro might have come in.
I think it was
the low 11.
Yeah, almost. It was almost there. But I mean, arguably all those cars outhandle this one too. If you look at the Nürburgring times.
Yeah, but we're, like we said, we're starting to de-emphasize Nürburgring times because really, but
I know
You know,
there's
some
variables, but
smart ass is gonna type a comment that says, well, if you're worried about Nürburgring times because they were done on different days with different factors and stuff, then you might as well, you know, question all horsepower figures, because what dyno was it on, and what was
but that's the thing.
temperature?
Dynos have correction factors to bring them all together.
There's that, but then what was the ambient temperature?
That's factored into the correction factor. Like that
Okay.
should, and that's actually one of the ways you can cheat on a dyno. You put a little bit of a heater and air conditioner next to it just to get it to do what you want to do. Yeah, there's ways to cheat. Like,
Right.
trust me, you can't try.
You know, but on blogs and or on not blogs, on forums and stuff, you always hear people arguing, was it a Mustang dyno or was it,
I mean,
you know?
yeah, and there's some dynos that are hero makers and there's some dynos that are ball breakers. I mean, it's true.
But I think with Nürburgring numbers, like at this point, I'd be willing to bet there's more variables than like dyno numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I also feel like if we were going to emphasize Nürburgring numbers, it should be from the factory with their best effort,
with their professional test.
Yeah, like this is what they want, not, you know, picking up third-party sites. Like, and we've been relying very heavily on third-party sites for Nürburgring data.
All right, fair enough.
Well, I mean, any way you cut it, this is the slowest car we've built out of the pack. Greg, if you were able to pull, what was the second slowest car? The R8?
The R8, yeah.
And what numbers did that reflect here?
We were very generous. Very generous.
Where were we?
4.1, 4.2, and 4.25.
Well, it's still fast.
It is.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like an 11-second car, and what planet are you living in when you call that, you know, living on when you call that slow? I mean, you know, just 10 years ago, an 11-second quarter mile would have astonished people. You know, we're living in an era of, and you know, there's a lot of ways to look at this. This is the only car that has electric motors on board. Did you expect more of it because of that?
Kind of, at least in the quarter mile and the 0 to 60.
And this car is twin turboed. You know, the Corvette has no turbos, and out accelerated this car.
I won't consider that in the performance. That would maybe come into X factor, but horsepower is horsepower. Whether you make, if you make 500 horsepower, you know, it's the naturally aspirated V8 is going to have a different power band, but everything says this thing should have more torque than it does, and more torque than the performance says it has.
Do you want to humor me for a second and call up, see if you can find Road and Track tested 0 to 60 numbers? I assume you were relying on factory numbers.
No,
right?
that was Car and Driver.
Oh, that was Car and Driver. Okay, well then clearly it's the slowest car of the bunch. We previously gave the R8 low 4.
It matches the R8 because that was that Car and Driver numbers we used for them as well. So 3.1 versus 3.1.
Okay, well, if we gave, you know, low fours to the R8 in this category, I'm willing to, you know, give the NSX high 3s. So I'd say 3.8 would be.
I was going to go 3.9.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a 4 simply because
it's not slow.
It's not slow. I'm rethinking this.
It is the slowest though, and we're not comparing it to all cars. We're comparing it to these cars,
and it does have the potential to have more better power numbers because of that's why it's so heavy too, because it's got a battery system.
Clearly, yeah.
But the Tesla shows that No, yeah, I'm going down to a 3.8. I'm not giving it a 4. It should do better than it does. And the fact is that's going to weigh on my score a little bit.
Good enough.
So next is price.
We always have the same argument here. The base line in this competition is the Corvette, which was equipped 70,000, like $73,000. The high end, I mean, the McLaren, we got up to what, roughly? I don't even remember.
378. But let me throw this out there. I'm going to throw a complete monkey wrench into your line of thinking right now.
Okay.
The R8 was over $150,000 cheaper, and we scored it lower
than the Corvette.
No, than the McLaren.
Oh, then the McLaren.
The McLaren was a shit ton more, and we still gave the R8 lower scores.
Because we all agreed that in spite of that oof, when we saw the price tag on the McLaren,
it was worth it.
You were getting class leading performance in every metric.
Right.
Yeah.
And plus it was just so gorgeous inside and out that we all agreed, as I recall, that it was worth the premium because you were getting something that was just really special.
Because this is, again, it's not just about price, it's about value.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but I think we're all kind of underwhelmed with this car. And I think it's going to get dinged. I mean, do you want to know how hard we ding the R8 so that you can ding it harder? Do you not? Because you want to get it a fair shake.
3.2 or something? 3 point something? Worse? 2 point something?
Dude, you weren't even a 2 point something.
2. I gave it a 2?
You gave the R8 a 2.
And I like that car better than I like this car.
That's what I'm saying.
Where was I at?
You were at a 2.75. You gave it the highest. And to be fair, this car is cheaper by $25,000.
I'm gonna kind of trip up here, but I would purchase this car over the R8, because I like the way it looks. As far as the exterior is concerned, a lot more, and the performance is comparable to the R8. So it's the slowest, but not by very much. The interior sucks, but I wasn't crazy about the R8s either. So I'm kind of, and it's cheaper than the R8 by how much, Craig?
25 grand.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to give it a higher score than the R8 and say it's worth, to me, a little bit more. I'd give it like a 2.2, 2.3.
Okay. That's fair enough. For exactly what you just said, I'm going to give it exactly the same score, because where it gives up some, it gains some in other areas. So I'm giving it the exact same score as the R8, even though I think this would probably win out over the R8 if I was spending my actual money.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
just saying, but I like the interior of the R8 a lot more than this. And that's where you spend all your time. So that alone might, but this isn't about the interior. This is about value, and I'm giving it exactly the same score, 2.5 for me.
We also haven't talked about, and we'll get there, but X Factor. This is a little bit more exclusive than the R8, I think. So
I've got something that's gonna potentially break that. So,
but I think I'm right in between you guys. I'm not impressed with the interior. I think the exterior, and I've seen them on the road, is more impressive than the R8 for sure. But that's an awful lot of money. It's an awful lot of money in this category to have the slowest car. And I know we've discussed, if you had them out at a stoplight, then you can throw out some of the raw numbers, because in real world, street.
I think using that analogy that you're doing right now, I think the R8 would beat it on the street.
Well, it could very well, but I mean, numbers are numbers.
Yeah.
You're paying more for this than the R8.
No, you're paying less for this.
I mean, sorry, you're
Yeah.
paying less for this than the R8. You have to ask yourself, is that interior that we're all pretty nonplussed by worth that discount? You know, or would you rather spend the money to have the nicer interior in the R8, but marginally less attractive exterior styling? You know, it's ups and downs. But ultimately, I think I would have to vote on, in this category, like, which car would I least want to buy out of all that we've built? And it's a real push between the R8 and this. So I'm going to give it a 2.4, which is right in, you know, slightly below what I gave the R8, because I know Audi's interiors and I never loved Japanese cars. I've never been in love with any Japanese cars, and I'm still not. And that's where I'm at.
Fair.
Yep.
Hey, you still scored it higher than what Greg and I did.
No, he was one
No,
below.
I'm right in the
10th
middle.
below.
Oh, okay.
10th below Greg, 10th above you.
Gotcha.
So next is X Factor.
Now,
And
what were you gonna throw in there?
I have never in the wild seen one of these.
Never seen one.
I've seen quite a few,
But never in the wild. Like I've seen it with car shows and, like, you know.
Oh, I've never even seen one at a car show.
Yeah, but never just cruising down the street.
In fact, I don't even know that they've actually made any.
Yeah, right. It's like, is that kind of like the birds or robots theories?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna score it because I've never seen one. They only made 500 a year or whatever. Like, poor sales numbers don't mean.
And is this a limited edition version?
This one is, yes.
How many?
I'm guessing as many as they can make, or as many as they can sell, but it's limited edition in that it's only 1 year. This is the only time.
So it's not limited to like 490.
I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
It's like the
final edition.
Yeah.
So how does that figure into your X Factor?
I really don't think it does. I really don't think this one does. Where it did with the R8 versus the Corvette and stuff, it doesn't here. The X Factor, I can think of so many things. Like, I know there's people who will fanboy over the fact that it's an NSX, and NSX is God, and that doesn't do anything for me. The NSX has never been this holy grail to me.
I'm right with you. The only X Factor I can come up with are those electric motors, but considering it's the slowest car out of the bunch,
I don't particularly care. Like, if anything, it complicates the system for not really a lot of boost.
And I'm not an electric guy either, so
yeah,
I'll play the devil's advocate here. I think it's cool that it's a limited edition, right? And it's the last year that they're going to make it, at least this model. So that adds some mystique to it. The fact that I've never seen one in person, at a car show, on the street at all, I think that's cool. To your point, Greg, there will be droves of Honda loving people who will just be drawn to it, and there's a lot of them. Although I am not a
but how many Honda loving people have $200,000?
You're right, so, and that's probably why they don't sell many of them.
Yeah.
And I myself am not a Honda person. I don't, I'm not like a huge fan, but it is a factor that I think I want to consider when I'm considering this X Factor, because that's exactly what it is, right? It's like, we talk about exclusivity, we talk about them being limited. So when I look at that and I compare it to the other vehicles that we've examined, the Corvette, not exclusive at all. The Audi, sort of exclusive. I mean, we haven't seen many of them, but they're out there. The McLaren, very exclusive, has major clout. I think it falls somewhere in between those two for me. What did I score the R8, Greg?
The R8 you gave an X factor of 2.5.
And the McLaren?
X factor of 5.
Yeah, so I'd probably give this thing like a 3.5.
Okay. See, I'm not doing that because honestly, I'm going to throw something out there, and it's kind of a crappy thing to say. And if anybody from Honda Acura is listening, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to talk crap. Is it exclusivity or is it a failed business venture? I really, is it a commercial failure? They have sold so few units and it's not been restricted.
Well, let me address that directly by saying most Halo cars are a failed venture, and many companies have and continue to accept losses, financial losses on their Halo cars.
But to the point that I've never seen one in the wild.
I've seen quite a few of them. I mean, not dozens and dozens, but
yeah, but you live in Malibu.
Yeah, but here was my line of thinking. If we were reviewing the first generation of this car, my X factor would have been the fact that, like, this car was developed in conjunction with Ayrton Senna, that it used cutting edge trickle down Formula One technology, that it was Japan's first attempt at getting into a market that was previously the domain of the Italians, a couple Germans, you know, stuff like that, a couple of English cars. This car has none of that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
It's just another pretty high performance car when you look at, you know, the cross section of all cars. I mean, certainly it's an 11-second car. That's no joke. But it's also got a price tag that starts putting it into serious 911 territory, for example. Like, I don't think you might be able to get a 911 turbo for this money.
Why didn't we do a Porsche?
Huh?
Why didn't we do a Porsche?
They're not mid-engine, they're rear engine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Porsche made the 918 Spider, which is one of my favorite cars of all time, which was mid-engine, and the Carrera GT was mid-engine, but neither of them are
made, right?
Configurable, yeah.
Yeah, made. That's right. Neither of them are available now. I mean, the 918 Spider is arguably one of the most technologically advanced cars ever built, and would probably, in my book, score higher if it was available to us than either the Ferrari or the McLaren that we've done.
Wow.
But
I don't know that I'd go that high.
Insane. It has 900, it has like 887 horsepower.
I know. I just,
you know, sub 3 seconds, 0 to 60 time. And it can run completely electric. It can run in hybrid mode or completely ICE mode. I mean, it was just a tour de force that the only car that ever touched it was the McLaren P1. Okay.
You guys want to know something indicative of this car in this episode? As you were describing that, I forgot what car we were comparing it to. I forgot what car we were even building or reviewing.
I think that's a very, very apt description of what's going on right now.
Yeah, but that said, I was the one who was kind of defending it in this whole X Factor conversation. And I, even though, like, yeah, all of the points that you guys are making are valid. I think that even though it lacks that same heritage that you were talking about with the first generation, Rob, it's still like, okay, so the first one wasn't really loved until after it was gone, which is why they brought it back. And it's a possibility that it'll be the same story with this one. And I honestly think it might be. So, I mean, Honda people are fanatical. And that's all I can say about that.
I get it. But again, most Honda people are fanatical about their Type Rs or, their Civics even. I mean, people love their Hondas. They're dependable.
But they are brand loyal. When you are a Honda person, they are brand loyal.
Oh yeah.
They buy Ridgelines when they need a pickup truck. They buy,
But,
what I mean?
But you don't have brand loyalty in the NSX. It's
Right.
just like, it's a toy for very well-heeled enthusiasts that probably, if they're going to buy an NSX, it means they've also got a variety of Ferraris and Porsches in their collection. And I guarantee you, to a man, if they're going to sell one of the cars in their collection, the NSX is probably going to be the first one that goes, because it just doesn't have an X factor to me. I would never spend. I'd have a 911 turbo before I had this. I'd purchase an Aston Martin Vantage, which is roughly in this price league.
Yeah.
Before you give a number, let me throw this bit out there. The X factor, when we thought all this up, was an ability to give you for us to give it extra points. Because we felt it was deserving. There is nothing saying, I mean, if it does absolutely nothing special, a 0 doesn't mean it's bad. It's not warranted.
Well, I'm not far off. I mean, I was really thinking sub 2. I was thinking like 1.5. I don't
that's
get
fair.
it.
That's very fair. I mean, I'm at 2.5, and that's only because I'm not willing to throw out the heritage of the original NSX. It is a nameplate. It's got that. The power plant is technologically interesting to me. It's not necessarily technologically appealing to me, but it is interesting to me. I do find it interesting what they've done. They have made a hybrid supercar, which obviously Porsche has proven can be done as well. But I still give it a 2.5. I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily deserving of that many extra points, but at the end of the day, it does have legitimate heritage. I feel like I'm being a little generous with the 2.5.
I think you are too, but I get it. And at one time you were kind of a Honda guy, where I've never been a Honda.
Oh, guy. I was never a Honda guy. Like that. I mean,
you said you drove an Acura, right?
No, I drove my Honda as my daily driver, and I appreciated it for what it was. It was a very comfortable. I could drive from here to California, and I was doing it a lot. I could drive from here to California and basically blink and not even realize I'd finished the drive. Like it was just so easy to drive.
Yeah.
When I was doing the import drag racing stuff, Hondas were cool. They were the biggest thing, but there's some coolness to it. But I would never say I was a Honda guy. Like I've never bought into the Honda, mystique like that. But that said, I've also owned more Hondas than I have Chevrolets.
Vinny, where are you at? You're conspicuous.
I already gave my score. I said I was at like 3.5.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm feeling like I'm low.
No, I think
because I'm feeling
exactly where you're supposed to be, and I gave it more points because of the heritage, like Greg said, like it still exists, and then to me it's an exclusive car. It's more exclusive than 2 out of the 3 cars that we've already reviewed. So that's where I was at. And
I think after your 1.5, I've got to lower my stuff because this is supposed to be extra credit, right? X factor is supposed to be extra credit. You don't get extra credit just because you ask the teacher, is there extra credit I can do? It's because you went above and beyond and you feel like you need a little boost because you're not being fair enough. I got to go to a 2. I mean, honestly, it's not the original.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about a 1.5. I just kind of, I don't get it. I can't think of a place that I'd be less likely to drop $190,000 in the automotive world. I mean,
yeah, but that's
you have a goddamn turbocharged 911 that will, you know, that does 3 seconds.
Yeah, but you're talking about value. Is that really X factor? I mean,
it can be. That's
no,
what
my
X factor's
argument
for.
is it has nothing that separates it from the pack.
but Rob, no, I'm just kidding.
You know what I'm saying? Like a
Yeah.
911 turbo is its own X factor. It's a 911 turbo. It's the ultimate.
And that's exactly what X Factor's for.
Right.
Like, if you want to ding it, you get to ding it. If you want to give it a 5 because you want to boost it, you get to boost it.
Yeah. And I'm
That's
not,
the
listen,
whole point.
I'm not even a Porsche guy. In fact, the only Porsche I'd own would be that 918 if I had a spare $2 million laying
I don't know,
around.
man.
Like I'm not,
RS was pretty incredible.
The what?
The GT3 RS was pretty incredible.
Yes,
Oh, there's you'll get no argument out of me that Porsche makes some of the best performing cars in the world. It's just, you know, it's not where my allegiances lie, so to speak. But yet, if we're talking about $190,000, I'd snap a 911 turbo up like instantly compared to this car. This wouldn't even be on my radar. And the reasons are, this isn't the first gen, which has all that great Formula One history to it, which really appeals to me because I'm a huge Formula One fan, always have been since I was like 9 years old.
But it has a V6 hybrid.
Yeah.
I get it, but
It's got some F1 technology.
yeah, but this car was developed and that drivetrain was developed before Honda was back in Formula One.
I'm just teasing.
I mean, Honda has a hybrid V6 turbo in Formula One right now, but they didn't enter, you know, when they were, this isn't a trickle down from that engine. That's what I'm trying to.
If this thing had MGUHs on it, we'd be talking different.
Okay.
Seriously. I'd have a totally different view.
If it had an MGUK on it, if it was regenerating kinetic energy from the brakes.
It is, isn't it?
No.
It doesn't have regenerative braking?
Brakes, I think, isn't it just a typical hybrid system?
I thought it had regenerative braking. Let me see if I can find that.
Well, if it does, I'll go to it too, because that's at least some connection to something, you know.
What's the next looks? So at first, before we started this episode, I thought I for some reason I had it in my head that the exterior of the car was kind of just like ugly, but after building it, it's an exquisite form. Unfortunately, I have to just temper that because the interior was god awful. And it's, you know, we have to look at the car as a whole and factor in all aspects of the aesthetics. I don't know. I want to hear your guys' first.
The exterior of the car, when you see it in person, is impressive. They, you know, I think the last episode or the episode before that, I used the famous Picasso quote that good artists borrow and great artists steal. Well, they stole far and wide. It's got touches of Lamborghini, as I said, in the front air dam. You know, front fascia rather. It's got Corvette touches on the hood. It's got Ford GT touches on those flying buttresses and behind the C, which are the C pillars. It's a really good looking car on the inside. I'm tempered by the interior, just like you said, which does nothing for me at all, the interior. So I'd be interested in calling upon young Gregory to tell me what I voted for the R8 in looks, and I will probably vote a little bit higher than that.
You were the highest at 3.5
for the R8,
and Vinny and I were both 3s.
I will go. I cannot give it a soft 4, but I can give it a 3.9.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, when you said I gave it a 3, I would give this a full bump to 4, a full point. Because to me, the exterior is so much better looking than that R8. I could probably get past the interior, you know what I mean? Like, it's so ugly, but you know, when you park that thing and you look at it, it's gorgeous. So I have to give it that full extra point.
I think I'm there. I mean, we had the same number on the R8. I think this exterior wise, it looks great. Plus it's got all that carbon fiber. I'm not going to give it extra for that, but it looks good. So I'm at a 4 too. And by the way, Rob, it does have regenerative braking.
Oh, well,
So
then
I mean, it's done directly through the motor. It's not captured through the caliper or anything.
I see. Well, give it a little, I'll give it, what did I was at 1.5, bump it to like a 1.9, because I was having problems with my vote.
Okay.
Because you guys came in a lot higher.
Okay.
And that's it, right?
That is it. Absolute scores. Vinny likes it better than the R8. Apparently, I don't like it as much as the R8, which blows me away because I disagree with that. My numbers don't match up with my feeling. And you really don't like it compared to the R8. Fair enough. However, the dollar per point, this handily beats the R8. Vinny's probably the most drastic.
I would buy this over the R8 for sure.
Yeah, because Vinny didn't really like the R8. So he was at $93.47 per point. And now here he's at $78.97. I was at $85.14 for the R8, and this is $80.64 for me. You were at $85.99 on the R8, and you're at $82.73 here. So
that reflects exactly how I feel about it. I'd take an R8 over this, but it would be close. You know, neither one of them, to be honest, would be on my radar at this price point. But if I had to buy one or the other, that's the order they would.
That's something that I noticed earlier. This price point is a little tough, right? 190,000. There's not really any other car like a competitor in the same price range. You either go way more in a Ferrari or a McLaren, or the next closest is that R8. And I would say that these two are very much alike, in that they're kind of just blah. What else can you guys think of? Anything else that's in that $200,000 range that would be, pretty spicy? Yeah.
No, actually, simply there aren't a lot of mid-engine cars in this world. And
okay,
we're covering the major ones.
So then let's expand that and let's say you have 200,000 to just buy any supercar.
No,
I'll go back to my argument. It's a 911 every time.
Honestly,
there's other cars
first.
There's
other cars that would come before both the R8.
What did you say, Greg?
I would get a GTR before this.
Oh, a GTR. Yeah, for sure. Excuse me. A Corvette 10 times over I would get before this.
Yeah. That's not even a choice.
I'd be satisfied paying a ton less money and buy a GT500 or 100%. Buy I'm going to get more laughs per gallon out of a GT500 or a Hellcat Red Eye than I am out of this car.
Honestly, if this is my budget, I'm going to get a GT500 and a Mach 1.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd
see, probably... And that was the whole thing for me in terms of like X factor. This just didn't have anything to it to sink its teeth into me. A muscle car and a mid-engine sports car are apples and oranges, but this car had so little like gravity for me that I'd go and buy a completely different classic car, and I'd end up with a Hellcat Red Eye or a GT500.
That was my point, right? That at this price point, there really isn't anything else. It's kind of a weird price point. And to your point, Greg, yes, 100%. I'd buy me a brand new Duramax with a trailer and a ZL1, and I'd go to the track.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, with the amount, I could buy a GT500 as my fun street car. I could buy a Mach 1, and I could buy a truck and trailer to tow it all, and we'd still be under the $191,000 mark.
And you could buy us all lunch.
Yeah.
And drinks. Must have drinks.
I mean,
well, look, I think we figured it out. It's just these two are right next to each other, and neither one of them impressed us. Neither one of them blew us away. I don't know.
And hey, the big seminal question you were asking, when we were still discussing the history of the car, why didn't this car ever catch on? Maybe we just answered it. It's just, maybe it's not a nationalist thing that Japan, is not associated with sports cars. Maybe it's just they don't quite understand the sports car, even though the original NSX handled better than anything, had higher technology than everything. There is an X factor to sports cars, and I'll go on record saying it's emotion.
Well, that's 100% what it's all about. That's what all of this is about.
Yeah, and
that's
this car just doesn't.
That's why you spend $200,000 on an automobile.
Yeah,
it's because of emotion.
This car just doesn't offer me that. It just leaves me cold.
Because I mean, realistically, if you wanted to kick any of these cars' asses on a budget, you'd go buy a 1991 Miata, put an LS, an LS in it.
But that's not what it's about.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you were just truly just beating the numbers per dollar, no, you don't spend.
Listen, a Timex tells the time just as well as a Rolex. You know what I mean? But that's not what it's about. It's a reward for the person.
And if it's a battery operated Timex, it tells it more accurately.
Exactly. But yeah, that's not what it's about. It's about the emotion you feel when you put it on. It's about the emotion you feel when you roll that thing into a corner and it just grips, and you hear the roar of the engine.
And also this transcends automobiles for me, because the products I use in my life that are important to me, they have an emotional attachment. I have an emotional attachment to them, I should say. I'm talking to y'all on a MacBook Pro 16-inch laptop, and I've always loved the software design, the graphic interface that Apple offers over Windows. I would never even consider ever buying a Windows computer in my life unless I absolutely had to for an occupation.
It's all about options, baby.
Here's another example. I've been a professional photographer on the side for much of my life, and I have always used high-end Nikons. There's something about Nikon cameras, that their design, the elegance.
I thought you said high-end and professional.
I still shoot film, so I'm really referring to film cameras.
Do you see the film cameras back there? There's a Canon F1 that would care to say your Nikon.
The Nikon F5, Nikon F2 AS, those cameras are just classics.
Well, listen,
my point being that the things that are important to me, they have a tactile, emotional component to them, and obviously cars as well, since cars are my true love in this world. And this car just didn't.
Rob, I have 7 toolboxes out in the shop, 7 full toolboxes. I have a favorite ratchet. I have favorite sockets.
100%.
Yeah.
It's an excellent car. I think we can all agree on that. It's an excellent car. It's just, and when compared to the cars in the same arena, it doesn't evoke that emotion in any of us. And that's what this show is about, you know, us figuring that out.
And let's also mention our next episode, probably next week, is going to be the most emotive car of all. And the juxtaposition between doing this now and doing the Ferrari next, I think it's going to bring out a lot of interesting scores in the Ferrari episode when we talk about X Factor. I mean, there is no car company in the world that has a bigger X Factor than Ferrari, just by that logo on the hood. I mean, that prancing horse is everything you need, you know, for an X Factor. So, you know, I wish I liked this car better. I gotta say that in my personal closing on this episode, I wish I did like it better. I wish, though, that it had things to it that made me like it better, and it just didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Well
I think I wanted to like this car more.
Yeah,
I think that's a fair way to put it.
yep.
Yeah. Listen, Rob, Greg, you guys have said it best. I appreciate you guys coming on. Rob, thank you for breaking down the history of Acura a little bit and the NSX.
Absolutely.
Greg, thank you so much for offering your technical expertise. And I hope everybody at home enjoyed it. Gentlemen, I think we'll see each other next week.
Indeed. See ya.
Well, Greg, I think everybody pretty much knows how we feel about this.
I think your tone just kind of sums up that entire experience.
Yeah. Look, I'm not trying to bash this thing super hard because it's a gorgeous car. I think we've, you know, established that it's beautiful and the engineering behind it is amazing. It's just, you know, the other cars in the same arena that it's competing with. I don't think it's, you know, I mean, it's on par. It just has the least amount of.
I mean, if you really want to be fair, like as a purely objective thing, I think it's hard to compare it against like the McLaren and eventually the Ferrari because it is in a different price point. And
yeah,
I mean,
but the Corvette, which is a fraction of the price.
No, but the Corvette just messes everything up. Like
it has more attitude than this thing would ever have.
Absolutely. But let's take the Corvette out of it for a minute. If we were just doing this, you would think like we got to eliminate the Corvette just for a minute. Just play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
If we were just looking at all these cars without the Corvette, you would think, well, I got to spend at least 350 grand to get something really awesome. Like not saying the cars aren't awesome, but man, the difference between 200 grand and 300 grand, I think that totally makes the McLaren a better value. Right.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, if I'm in the tax bracket to be looking at any of these cars, you know, I would, if I wasn't able to immediately have the McLaren and my only other option was this NSX, you better believe I'm just going to wait and save and get the McLaren because it doesn't do it for me, you know? And the McLaren is like for $100,000 more, you're in a totally different league. Like it's you know what I mean? Yeah.
How about we take the R8 and put the NSX body on it, and then we have a kick-ass $200,000 car.
Yeah.
Like,
yes and no, because when we looked at the performance metrics, they were like pretty close.
The R8 was still faster in some key areas. And honestly, I think it really just comes down to the fact that thing is heavy because it has the batteries. And I mean, like I
not to mention you got, you know, a twin turbo V8 all-wheel drive versus, or excuse me, it's not twin turbo, but it's
a V10.
It's right? You have the V10. I was thinking of the McLaren.
Yeah.
You have the V10 all-wheel drive versus
twin turbo V6 hybrid. Yeah. Like, I mean, I really think that when it comes to performance and spirit of driving, as far as noise and stuff, I think.
It's funny. You described a situation in which you took the body of the NSX and put it on top of the R8 because the aesthetics of the RSX exterior or NSX exterior is much nicer than what we saw with the Audi, and that's essentially what Lamborghini did.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think I like the NSX's profile more than a Lambo.
Without a doubt. But
so, I mean, but I get what you're saying. Like,
yeah, the idea is like they did that. They listened to you and they did that.
So apparently, I guess I'm on the right track. Like with at least other people think I'm what I'm saying is what they feel too. Because
I mean, you and I are not exactly Lambo guys, but you got to admit it has more striking visual features than the R8. The R8 is pretty kind of just plain.
It's utilitarian.
Yeah. It's if it was a knife, it would cut, but it wouldn't do much more.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. NSX, very cool car. Would I ever buy one? No. And I think our scores reflected that.
Yeah. And then, I mean, honestly, I'm going into next week completely blank slate.
I know you seem to be the most impartial one when it comes to Ferrari.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get emotional about Ferraris for me, I mean, it's Magnum PI and it's Miami Vice. That's where I get emotionally attached. And I know Rob hates those cars.
I know, and it kills me. Like, he's like the biggest Ferrari dude, and the two most iconic Ferraris, he has no, he doesn't like them. Like, you got the Testarossa. I posted this thing when I was a kid.
I had models, and yeah.
Dude, and then you have the 308 GTB, which is like the best looking car of the 80s, hands down. So I love Ferraris. I always have. Especially things like the F40, amazing.
Oh, the F40. Oh yeah, I had a model of that too. Yeah,
for sure. If you didn't have a poster of an F40 when you were a kid, I don't know, you're born in the wrong generation, because that thing's just a chef's kiss.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about the F50? Like, I know it's a better car. I don't know that the F50 pulled the same heartstrings that the F40 did.
No, definitely not. The F40 was the first of its kind. It was like the first. Had the wild arrow, that massive spoiler on the back. It was F1 inspired, like heavily. You know what I mean? They're all Ferraris are F1 inspired, but that one, you really saw it coming from that era of racing.
Yeah.
Like the louvers on the side, behind the rear wheels, like the brake ducting and all that stuff. Just so cool. But anyways, I'm a big Ferrari guy. I like them a lot. So next week, I think it'll be interesting because Rob is like die-hard Ferrari dude.
I don't think we're gonna see a 4 from him.
No,
maybe the price. Maybe
he did say that the McLaren surprised him, and it will probably give the Ferrari a run for its money. But I think with Rob, we already know. Yeah, he's gonna score it pretty.
And that's fair. That's totally fair. I mean, that's his love. That's his heart.
If I can make a prediction, I think it'll be, as far as the scoring tiers, it'll be Rob, me, you, and that's just because.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going in, neutral. I'd say I'm going in undecided. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna look at it, and I'm gonna take it all in, and we're gonna see. I mean.
Yeah, the only place I anticipate dinging this thing is, of course, price, value. But then that's subjective too, value, man. I mean, if it's that much better than everything else, but it costs $1 million, well, is it that much better?
Well, that's the thing. We have the McLaren to throw everything off at 370,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, that really is going to.
That I think we scored that thing like a 4.8 or like 4.7 on value, man. That thing is fantastic.
Yeah, because what you get for the money it's
incredible. Awesome. I mean, I think we're gonna look at the specs, and yes, maybe the Ferrari will blow everything else out of the water, or just be better, slightly better. And then you look at you know, that McLaren you can get for 300 and like less than 300 or less than 400,000. I mean, that's a hell of a value when you're looking at the Ferrari that's comparable for over $1 million.
It's so weird to use the word Ferrari or value with what we're talking about. Just like
maybe if we were smoking cigars and wearing Rolexes, this would make more sense. Talking about our hedge funds, but
talking about how your Rolex ran out of battery, so you just go buy a new one. Although Rolexes are mechanical, so that doesn't work.
I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, just I know. Shut up. I know.
That's blasphemous. I think the watch people, if they're watching this, are just like having got a conniption.
So now when I get FU money, I'm going to buy a Rolex and shove like a battery operated quartz movement into it.
Yeah, just
and put it all over YouTube. Like that's what I'm gonna do.
So you'd be like all these supercar or hypercar owners that are just destroying them for likes and views.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, man, I'm looking forward to next week. This week, everybody at home, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you are a Honda fanboy or girl and you think we are out of our minds, drop a comment in the comment section below and let us know that we're way off base. If you agree with us, let us know too. Of course, hit that like, comment, subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you know we're going up live. Well, not live, but we're going up every Friday at noon here and on Street Muscle Magazine's Facebook. So go over there, give us a follow as well if you want to keep up with the latest industry news, etc., etc. Of course, I'd also like to take a moment and thank our sponsors. That's Performance Distributors, ProCharger, ARP, Liqui-Moly, Silver Sport Transmissions, Holly Performance Brands, Optima, Performance Online, and of course our title sponsor, Lucas Oil. Shout out to them. Without them, we couldn't do this. Without you guys, we wouldn't do this. Greg, do you have anything for the people before we let them go?
I think I'm about done after this one. I hate to say it, but
yeah, we dove deep on this one, and it wasn't a car that we were like super excited about. So be appreciative. With that, we'll say peace. Later, guys and girls.